Big breaking news this evening.
Mauricio Pochettino has left Chelsea.
And Chelsea have parted ways with Pochettino.
Mauricio Pochettino has parted ways with Chelsea, and this video was totally on him, of his work and what he's gonna do in future at Chelsea. But on 21st May, he is sacked, and now I had to change the script. Now we will not only look at his work at Chelsea, but also how bad or good is this decision made by the owners. So let's look at it. Also, this video title would have been Are Chelsea really improving under Pochettino? But now that he has been sacked, I changed it to Did Chelsea really improved under Pochettino? And that's really shocking and kind of not fitting with us fans. Of course, there is always two sides of coins, where some thinks that he should have been sacked, and there is another group that says Chelsea were finally clicking with him, so he shouldn't have been sacked. But that's the later part of the video. We will see first his work at Chelsea. So, did Chelsea really improve under Pochettino, or the standards and expectation of Chelsea fans just have got down? This Europa League qualification is looking huge progress under Pochettino. And guys, I'm not going to compare this season's stats to last season, because last season was a torture to watch as a Chelsea fan. Let's start with the first big question and the title of this video, that is, did Chelsea really improve this season? I would say 50-50, because any Chelsea fan around the world who has supported Chelsea for so many years would clearly say this, that this is not Chelsea standards, even if they got Europe this season. But the big question arises, what is Chelsea identity? And notice I have not used the word standards, because everybody knows we want to win every single trophy out there. But the main question is, what is Chelsea identity over the past few years, and did Pochettino really give Chelsea a new identity through his playstyle before he was sacked? If you closely follow Chelsea, their DNA is primarily based on results. Like under the last regime of Roman Abramovich, Chelsea sacked managers if results were not going their way, even it was Mourinho, Ancelotti or Conte. The best example it can be Thomas Tuchel, who comes in the middle of the season and won the UEFA Champions League, even if the next season Chelsea didn't meet the expectation. But that was a clear example of result-based strategy. Talking about their play style, Chelsea in previous seasons has mainly set up themselves in a 3-4-3 shape. Either you say Conte era or Tuchel era. Basically, Tuchel in his 3-4-3 formation, he operated Chelsea 3 at the back build-up, plus midfielders operated in different heights. Front 3 of Chelsea were narrow and the wing-backs provided the width. Also, it was not necessary all the time that the wing-backs were wide, always. When playing in a winger system like the front 3 of Chelsea, that season mainly involved Werner, Mount and Havertz. But when Chelsea played with wingers, the wing-backs were in the half spaces to manipulate the defenders and the wingers were wide. Mainly the wing-backs occupied the half space, made the blindside runs behind opposition defensive line, and this wing-back role differed from players' identity too. Like when Reece James and Ben Chilwell got injured, Marcos Alonso and Cesar Azpilicueta used that role and fit into that. This is how Thomas Tuchel created Chelsea identity. Unfortunately, he was sacked and now the times changed, and Chelsea did find an identity under Pochettino, and I think they nearly got that. To discuss it briefly, we need to start from the start. From the pre-season, where Chelsea had absolutely everyone in their roster except Wesley Fofana. Pre-season started, Pochettino set up Chelsea in his usual 4-2-3-1 formation, but it was too different in pre-season than in actual season. So we all know that Christopher Nkunku got injured at the start, so it was a major blow for the Blues, and it actually brought up Chelsea's 1000 problems in attack until Cole Palmer came into the light. Starting from the build-up, unlike pre-season, Pochettino from the first game, that was against Liverpool, used a back 3 system, where usually Axel Disasi, Thiago Silva and Levi Colwill was the part of the 3. Ben Chilwell and Reece James' role was different. Pochettino used Ben Chilwell as a left winger while involving the right back into the build-up. And he comes out in press after the Liverpool game saying that he wants to play in a 4-2-3-1 formation while setting up in a 3 at the back system. Guess now, what was the results Chelsea got while setting themselves in this system? By the time Pochettino realizes the problem, Chelsea managed to only secure 5 points from their 6 Premier League games. And that was a horrible start from the Blues. So what was this Chelsea setup problem? Let's look at it. Building up from the back, Chelsea, as I told you, built it up with a 3 at the back of Disasi, Silva and Colwill. When pressed high or even in mid-block, Chelsea majorly used Gusto in their build-up. When facing a low block, Gusto was positioned higher. But teams that kept low block emphasized on preventing Chelsea progression from wing. So as soon as Gusto was getting the ball, they were all over it. Now Ben Chilwell was used as a left winger. This meant that Colwill had to play in a hybrid role, and the result was Colville didn't pushed up high, so Chelsea had absolutely zero threat from that left wing. And guys, we all know how bad Ben Chilwell was when he was playing at left winger position. Here you will notice that in Liverpool and West Ham game, Pochettino positioned Chukwuemeka as in number 8 and that left hand side of the midfield, which meant at least some attacking threats from that left hand side came. But as soon as Chukwuemeka got injured, Enzo Fernandez comes into light. From the Luton game, Pochettino positioned Enzo at left hand side of the midfield, which actually worked on that day, but Pochettino was not completely into it. He experimented more with Enzo's positioning. From the Nottingham Forest game, Chelsea's major problem came into light. That was their inability to break a low block team. And this point has everything to do with Enzo Fernandez positioning and what was the attacking setup by Pochettino. In the Forest game, Chelsea set themselves in a same 3 at the back with Gusto as a right back and Chilwell as a left winger. In pivots there were Caicedo and Gallagher, whereas Enzo Fernandez was positioned in between the lines to link up with Jackson and initiate the attack. But it was a tactical blunder. Chelsea used 6 players in build-up while only 4 of them were attacking, whereas if you see in team like Manchester City, they do the opposite. They usually build up with 5 players and attack with 5 or higher up the pitch. City push up one of their pivots that can be either Stones or Akanji or sometimes Rodri too. Okay, then too if Chelsea attacked with 4 players, but who is their attacking midfield? It involved Enzo, who himself positioned far away from Forest low block in order to get involved. That means it left the whole space in between the lines that left Chelsea with only 3 attackers, and even if Gusto pushed up, he finds himself no man to pass. This also resulted and made a flat line of Chelsea attackers like you see here. Chelsea had to find a way to score goals, so they spammed crosses, and Chelsea were the number 1 team in the Premier League who spammed this much crosses. And it's funny when you think they are crossing while they were having Nico Jackson as their striker, and it's not a criticism but actually think it is in the way, like a team has already kept a low block, means they are comfortable already at the back, and when you cross from outside the box, it's too easy for the opponents to clear that off. And that was seen in Nicolas Jackson's performance too. Jackson had similar non-penalty XG per 90 with Haaland, but only scored once till September, because instead of using Jackson's style of play, that is coming deep, linking up and dribbling, he had to wait for the crosses to arrive in the box. This setup made it too easy for opponents to defend against Chelsea. It made it too predictable attack. This predictability and only reliant on one type of chance creation, that was crossing. Chelsea won only 1 game out of their first 6 PL games, scoring just 5 goals. But Pochettino identified this, and that's where Chelsea transformation started, and that's where role of Cole Palmer comes in. Pochettino first sorted Enzo Fernandez positioning. He positioned Enzo with Caicedo, which meant Gallagher moved up front. Palmer was now starting constantly at right wing, whereas either Sterling or Mudryk started for Chelsea at left wing. That meant now Chelsea had a proper winger threat from both sides, rather than relying on only one side and the other side is your wing back playing as a winger. Palmer and Gallagher rotated more often in their positions, like when Palmer came inside in between the lines, it was Gallagher who moved at the right wing. Moving Gallagher up front at the top of midfield meant that he was able to win the duels too, at the top. And moving Palmer in between the lines meant Chelsea had someone to link up their play and play in tight spaces that was vacated by Enzo Fernandez when he was playing as a number 10. That also brings us to the point where role of Malo Gusto become crucial. Earlier in the season, as I mentioned, the attacking system Chelsea were in, where they were using more players in build-up and less in attack. By changing the attacking system where Palmer was introduced at a number 10 role and also Gallagher moved up front, Pochettino also focused on to attack from Malo Gusto too. As see here in this clip, this is against the game versus Manchester City, where here Sterling and Jackson are playing in their respective position for this game. Chelsea had Reece James as their right back. As City pressed, Palmer drops into the space little bit down, but still in between the lines. Notice how he is inverted so that Reece James can get a space out wide on that right wing. This also makes Chelsea 5 players in attack up front. The same tactics Pochettino used with Gusto too. Palmer would tuck in, have all the freedom, and Gusto then can exploit the space. This also ensured that Chelsea were still building up with a back 3, with 2 pivots of Caicedo and Enzo or either Gallagher. Palmer either in number 10 role or at right wing, supported by a proper winger at left and Jackson as a striker. And then Palmer would tuck in, overloading the center, creating space for Gusto to exploit. Also, the crosses also improved by Chelsea. Instead of crossing from far wide at the box, Chelsea started to rely more on cutbacks, and Chelsea would overload their box for someone to tap that in. This attacking system can be named as, instead of going around the central block, Chelsea changed it to cut straight through it and attack from the center. This gave Chelsea massive results and a lot of improvement in their stats. Till October, Chelsea scored just 13 goals in 10 Premier League games, while in the next 10 games, Chelsea scored 21 goals, which included the clash against Tottenham, who were in their best form, and a thriller at the bridge against Manchester City. Whereas we also saw massive improvement in the performance after Chelsea lost the cup final against Liverpool. The next 8 games, Chelsea scored a whopping 26 goals in all competitions. These massively improved stats also shows Pochettino's use of players in their natural positions, not misinterpreting them, and also players who came back from long injury. Take the example of Noni Madueke, who is a natural right winger. When he gets the space at the right wing, without hesitation, he takes on player, and when he beats them, there is always the option of Palmer, Gusto, or either to cut back. If we are talking about take-ons, well, here is the interesting stat for you all. Chelsea this season attempted 869 take-ons, which made them second at the Premier League for most take-on attempted, in which 398 were successful, which also placed them second in the Premier League again. This stat just shows the threat Chelsea possess by their wingers, either it's by Madueke or Sterling or Mudryk or Palmer. This is a massive improved stat. Pochettino also emphasized the importance of Cole Palmer to the team in an interview to Sky Sports, saying that how he is the only player that has the freedom to rotate anywhere at the pitch, either at the striker or as a number 10. When pressed high, he can drop in as well to orchestrate, and it was quite visible in Chelsea play style too. Can we say that this change of tactics solved Chelsea's problem? And of course, we are still not talking about Chelsea's defensive issues they had all season. We will get to that point as well, but what I am focusing on Chelsea's attacking system. This system provided Chelsea everything. I don't think so, and you will agree on that point, cause if Chelsea would have stick to this system, they wouldn't have qualified for Europe, right? Like this play style Chelsea opted was not giving consistent result to them, and the major issue why it happened was probably injuries. Tactical flaws were there too in the system, but injuries really hampered Chelsea to tick this season. Take example of Chelsea's right back position. Reece James got injured after first game of the season. Then Gusto, who whenever didn't played due to injury, Pochettino had to play either Axel Disasi or Alfie Gilchrist at the right back position. Even Marco Correa played at the right back position too. Same goes at the left back position. Ben Chilwell goes injured after Villa game, and then he went on missing for 3 months. Then he had knee problems, and this made it 23 games missing due to injury. But thanks to Cucurella, who really stepped up this season after being on the bench till the Villa game. When Cucurella comes in, he was immediately positioned at the right back, which tells you how bad Chelsea's condition was. But when Cucurella missed 9 games due to his ankle surgery, Pochettino placed Colwill as left back, but much higher up, like overlapping, not just involved in build-up, but involved in attacks too at left wing. Even Malo Gusto played at left back, and he was quite good whenever he played in that position. Stats show that till matchday 36, Chelsea had total 54 injuries this season, which obviously places them top of the table. And one more interesting fact was that when Axel Disasi got injured, Chelsea had almost every outfield player injured at some point in their season. And this report was from April, nearly 1.5 months before season ends. That's really questioned Chelsea's medical staff. But we can't blame injury for Chelsea's inconsistency, not completely, because in this season, there were points where we fans thought that this would be an easy game. Although, sorry to say, none of Premier League games are easy, but there were games where Chelsea fans expected consistency from the side, but Pochettino's Blues failed to deliver it. Most probably, it happened due to the tactical blunders by Pochettino. Yes, we would look now why the changed attacking system by Pochettino after the Villa game that I explained earlier couldn't provide consistency to the side, because losing to Man United, not scoring at Goodison Park, losing at Molineux to Wolves, thrashed by Liverpool at Anfield, thrashed by Wolves at home, and humiliation at Emirates against Arsenal cannot be just bad luck or the narratives of "oh, we played good football, our XG were better, we just need a goal scoring number 9. This just sounds good when the results are 1-0 or 2-1, when you really think team gave it all, not the results like 5-0, 4-1 or 2-4. These were humiliation. So what was going wrong for Chelsea? Let's look at it. Gone are the days where formation and stable movements were everything. Those days are gone where conventional setups and no rotations would be okay. Now rotations in a certain formations are everything. When Pochettino was appointed, the question was, can he really upgrade his playstyle, which he applied at Spurs and PSG, to again in Premier League? And watching first few games, not of preseason but of actual one would say, this is it, he is outdated. Even I considered that too. But he changed the system, and there were games where it was hard to believe that how on earth Chelsea lost that. Take the example of Carabao Cup final, where Chelsea almost won it if they would have finished their chances. Same goes for the FA Cup semi-final against Manchester City, where they missed a dozens of chances just to lose it in last 10 minutes of the game. These rotational plays were visible in Chelsea plays. But if Pochettino really adopted to the modern attacking system, why Chelsea still were inconsistent? This inconsistency can be blamed upon individual errors to some extent, like poor finishing or sloppy mispasses, but it was primarily based upon Chelsea midfielders Enzo Fernandez, Moises Caicedo and Conor Gallagher. They cover like Chelsea's 80% inconsistency problem, in which Enzo and Gallagher are the main character. Like the havoc were based upon their positioning, which would directly affect Caicedo. We all know how elite Enzo Fernandez is with the ball on his feet. The start of the season, as I mentioned, Pochettino played him as a number 10, so to get more creativity further up the pitch, and he positioned Gallagher with Caicedo, but later you know what happened with Chelsea with this style. So Pochettino shifted or swapped both players up and down, Gallagher at top and Enzo with Caicedo. But still in this new system, Pochettino was obsessed to shift and operate Enzo much higher up the pitch, because we can understand this simple logic. Like when Chelsea were not having an attacking right back like Malo Gusto or Reece James, Pochettino was forced to play Axel Disasi at right back position, and of course he is not a natural right back. So it do limit Chelsea's progression from both the fullbacks, because Chilwell was injured too. And what a natural right back can do, Disasi wasn't able to produce that. That meant Chelsea need to rely on other option and have someone to get higher up the pitch. Basically have more men forwards. So Enzo would be asked to play more higher up the pitch, which then isolates Caicedo as lone pivot and make it as a classic 3 midfield or a 4-3-3 formation. And this would hurt Chelsea defensive wise and also create havoc in build-up, as opposition with a high press would have their out of position shape like that, which made it tough for Caicedo to operate single-handedly. Game against Liverpool at Anfield and away at Emirates against Arsenal can be a great example of it. Also, one more reason for pushing Enzo Fernandez up was Conor Gallagher. Yes, you heard it right. We all know pushing Gallagher up by Pochettino's main reason was to use his defensive duels winning ability, and no doubt Gallagher has been the best in it. Just look at his defensive stats here. No doubt he has been one of the best in the league. But when Enzo was really involved in build-up with Caicedo, this would leave Gallagher alone, and we all know that's not Gallagher's game. I mean, he is not actually too good in receiving between the lines and turn and just drive into it. So that's also one of the main reasons Enzo was pushed up by Pochettino, so to progress the ball up the field. And you may say and ask, if that's the problem, then why we just swap both of them? Like if both pushes up and it will lead to Caicedo isolation in defensive transition, so why just have Gallagher deep and Enzo up the field? But here is some interesting stat for you. Look at Enzo touches in defensive third this season in comparison to last season. Of course this season he has less. Now look at the touches in attacking third compared to last season. It's good too. But here is the bombshell. In chance creation, look at this. Last season from Enzo was much better than this season, despite of Enzo playing deep last season. And further up the pitch, this season you can see clear difference in chance creation. So this really reflects the point where Enzo can be effective really when playing deep with Caicedo, and this is visible too on the pitch where Fernandes created dozens of chances when playing deep with Caicedo rather than driving forward and being between the lines. Yes, Pochettino also identified Gallagher's lack of creativity when positioned in between the lines, so he constantly made rotations with Palmer, and it's visible in Chelsea playstyle too. Like when Palmer comes in play as a 10, Gallagher shifts across at right wing. Gallagher and Palmer are the only two players at Chelsea who constantly rotates all over the pitch, especially Gallagher, which is good most of the times. Like it creates unpredictable style of play for Chelsea, but it sometimes is bad for Chelsea too. Like the game against Everton at Goodison, where they failed to score and lost the game. Gallagher passing map looked like this all around the pitch, but none of key passes. Until the Everton game, Chelsea were 13th in the Premier League for number of key passes. So this was a really worrying sign for Chelsea. But goal scoring in this system was never the major problem for them. especially whenever Chelsea had both of their natural fullbacks playing at their position, and when Pochettino regularly used wingers at both wings, especially Madueke on right and Mudryk Sterling at left. Stats show that how Chelsea scored 48 goals in 20 games in Premier League, which is actually quite insane. But as I mentioned, the flaw and predictability and inability of Chelsea midfielders to be effective in this system, Pochettino, after the heavy defeat against Arsenal at Emirates, completely changed it. As since that game, Chelsea played draw against Villa and then went on an unbeaten run of form in the month of May. They won their all 5 games in the Premier League, scoring 14 goals and conceding just 4. That's a massive progress, which helped them to secure the European football. But how did it change for Chelsea? Like, they never won 5 Premier League games in a row since March 2022, and for a team who were constantly inconsistent and lost the games when we fans thought that could be an easy ride, either it was against Wolves at home or draw against Burnley and Sheffield United. So how did Chelsea, who were sitting 10th at match day 19 with only 25 points, went on to brag 38 points in the next 19 match days and secure the European football? And another interesting stat for you is that only City, Arsenal and Liverpool were able to grab more points than Chelsea in the second half of the campaign, which itself is a massive turnaround. So let's look at how Chelsea pulled it off. The main reason for this turnaround is the tactical one, and primarily based on one player, that is Marco Correa. I'm not saying other roles are not significant, but Cucurella plays a massive role in this new system. While we can't say it's new because Pochettino gave us this system glimpse in pre-season, but never actually used in the actual one, and this new one is actually quite a lot different. So what is this new play style? So I told you guys about Chelsea's old attacking style, which was pretty good, but it had its flaws, probably defensive ones. But now what Pochettino has changed is he has inverted Marco Correa with Caicedo in pivot. But it will be crime if I say he has been inverted in only pivot, or his role is still staying deep with Caicedo, because starting from the build-up, Chelsea have continued their 3 at the back build-up with pivots of Caicedo and Cucurella, which of course pushes up Gallagher with Palmer, who was starting as a 10, because now that Madueke was regularly starting, so Palmer was in between the lines constantly. So now you would guess that this is a damn box midfield again, which is copied from Arsenal and Manchester City or Brighton. But hold on, what if I tell you it's not like that? It's clearly not even close to that systems City and Arsenal use. So what actually Pochettino did is he has used absolute rotational play, like there are lots and lots of rotations on the pitch. So before going and giving you examples of these rotations, let me first explain you why this inverting tactics help Chelsea in different ways. First, it's very basic. It pushes up one man from deeper position like Gallagher and create an extra man in midfield. So instead of relying on fullbacks to overlap and make it as an extra attacker for Chelsea, now they have 5 men up front to attack with Gallagher and Palmer. You can say who can operate in half space as an attack. The next reason can be is Cucurella's engine or work rate, you can say. I'm not saying that by coming in midfield, Cucurella just banks through balls and key passes and stuff like that and is better operating than Enzo Fernandez. But what I'm saying by meaning engine is that his work rate that has helped Chelsea massively. As he inverts, there is an additional security in midfield for Chelsea, like if they lose the ball in midfield, they can recover it very quick. And it was quite visible against Spurs game, as Cucurella won 9 ground duels, most by any player on the pitch that night, and mostly in midfield. Same goes for the West Ham game, where he won 6 ground duels. And talking about duels, that's not Fernandez's game is. So this could be one of the key reasons why Cucurella has been inverted. Now that we have covered the 2 of the most basic reasons why Pochettino had gone through this system, let's look at the main patterns we observed, like main rotational patterns we have observed in this system. So they build up with a back 3 of mainly Badiashile, Thiago Silva and Trevor Chalobah of what we observed in those 5 games. And they also include Petrovic in their build-up, and when Petrovic is involved, the right back, or you can say the right centre back, moves too far wide, almost playing like a natural right back. You can say that with Gusto when he is starting, but Chalobah is also assigned that role too. And this position is quite interesting because for Pochettino, 5-man attack is not enough for him. So as seen against Nottingham Forest game, He inverted Gusto in midfield, like pushing him in half space or as a number 8. Same we saw it against Brighton, when Gusto inverted and Caicedo takes his vacant right back position. And Gusto is quite good at inverting and operating in half spaces. He can turn, feed the through balls, he is good in shooting and is a potential threat. One more reason can be why he is inverting is that to fill that right half space, which in the game against Tottenham and West Ham we saw how it was filled constantly by Cole Palmer, who was operating and overloading on that right hand side with Madueke. But since the Forest game, Palmer is rotating more probably everywhere at the pitch. So to have that constant threat from half spaces and have a player that can get on a half turn and initiate the attack, Gusto fits it right in that role. And this was not the first time we saw him inverting. Against Liverpool at the Carabao Cup final, he did that too, but only for a few times So now that we have covered the dynamism of this three at the back, we now look at how Chelsea is operating with rotational midfield. So when inverted, many of you think of box midfield will be there, but there are patterns which you need to look at it. So Cucurella never is steady in his position. He is always willing to make those runs from the half spaces as seen here against Tottenham, and he is not afraid to move up the pitch, make the run, and when the ball is lost he is immediately coming back to his position to recover. That's a plus point. Then the role of Conor Gallagher is crucial because he possesses the same engine like Marc Cucurella. But the difference is Cucurella mostly operates in his wing, like even if he is making run from the half space, but Gallagher is moving everywhere. Quite often in build-up, when teams pressing high, Gallagher is seen at left back position to help in build-up, and then sometimes he would be seen pairing up with Caicedo when Cucurella don't inverts, and when the ball is high up the pitch, he would be seen in the box also. Also, when in normal attacking shape, Chelsea do overloads, as seen in here against West Ham. Palmer with Madueke at right wing and Gallagher with Mudryk at left. So that's surely not a box midfield. And talking about more rotations, sometimes Cucurella would be acting as a number 8 with Palmer dropping little bit, and it would be Caicedo and Gallagher at pivots. Now we talk about role of Cole Palmer in this system, which is quite the same rotations. Since shifting to this inverting fullback system, Palmer seems to have more positional freedom. But it would be crime if I say that he didn't possess it before, because he was operating freely before too. But that's what's changed is Palmer is now seen on that left hand side too, mainly as a number 8, and goal of Mudryk can be great example of it against Forest. And if you think what these rotations are contributing to the team, just see Chelsea's first goal against Brighton. Here Caicedo finds Palmer, who has got quite a lot of space to attack. Look at how Cucurella is making that run forward. Palmer now finds Mudryk then Gallagher, and look at how Cucurella is making that run, and everybody knows what happened next. So this was the great example of rotational play, and it also indicates how many men have Chelsea forwards to attack. Same you can notice against Spurs here. One more thing you can observe is distance between the pivots, if you wanna call Cucurella a pivot, but what here matters is the distance between him and Caicedo. Although you can say here he is making runs, so what's new, but here is the thing against Forest. Nottingham Forest really find the solution of playing against our inverted fullback tactics. They set themselves up in a 5-2-3 out of possession and really block Chelsea's 3-2 build-up. After that first rotational goal that involved Palmer and Mudryk, Chelsea didn't have threat at all. So in second half, Cucurella didn't inverted that much because of potential Forest counter at wings, and the way Chelsea stretched and opened up Forest was by distance in their pivots. Here you can see that. Whereas in compared to first half, it wasn't happening. So that was the major difference. So these are all new tactics that Pochettino applied in the last 5 games. And there can be more details to be noticed, like underlap runs by Cucurella, Jackson coming deep in build-up, but not just passing, but also taking on players with his ability to turn and drive forward. And the most important part, yet brightest part of this tactics were rotational play, which I gave you the examples. But rotations in build-up like this prevent teams from pressing with success. So this was quite good idea from Pochettino. But now there is no use of discussing these tactics because Pochettino is sacked, and now we move to our final big question. That is this a good decision made by the owners and directors? I would say this is a bad decision. You just don't have any idea how much will it affects our players. You just don't. Okay, let's look at this way. This season, how many leaders were there in the group? How many? Just one. Thiago Silva. And now he is gone, so we are left with only Chilwell and James from that Champions League winning squad. And Pochettino was given kits, had a massive clear out, and then everybody is young and new to the club. He had the backing of the entire dressing room. Players felt like he is getting best out of them. Either it was Palmer or Madueke, or trusting in Jackson, or trusting in Chalobah or Gallagher too. But now that he is gone, you think the next manager whoever comes in, either it's De Zerbi or Weston McKenna or Thomas Frank, you think it will be easy for them? Then you are totally wrong. It will be 10x time much tougher job than Pochettino had at the start of the season. And Pochettino too did made some errors in the season. Either it was playing Enzo at number 10 position, or Chilwell at left wing, or his constant tactical struggles against a low block side, or playing a high line against Liverpool away at Anfield with Thiago Silva at the back, or defending in a Carabao Cup final to Liverpool academy team just to win it at penalties, or draws against Sheffield and Burnley, which missed us the Champions League this season. These were all Pochettino's crime this season, but what I am saying is that he still did an exceptional job and shouldn't be sacked, because if Chelsea owners were saying to media about trust the process or we have to be patient, then this was the similar situation. Pochettino got Europe and then he got his match-winning tactics. He sorted out Nkunku's positioning in that new system and we were ready for the next season. But he is gone now, and I am saying it again, whoever comes as Chelsea's next manager, he will have 10x tougher job than Pochettino. Players may revolt against the new one if results are going Chelsea's way, or if players are underperforming, they may revolt against the new system. Again, surely if Chelsea don't get the right man for this, they may struggle against next season, probably more than they struggle in Pochettino's regime. So what do you think of Chelsea's progress under Pochettino? And was that a good decision by owners? And who do you think will be Chelsea's new manager? Comment below.